Hello and welcome to a special episode of my Let's Play World of Tanks. This episode is actually our competition of the 7x42 drill training grounds that we were in. It was an interesting competition. We set out with a plan in motion and it kind of worked out for us. Initially we were going for a nice mix of tanks to see what would happen. You know, we kind of planned it out, did our thing. It ended with us losing in the second round, which was expected. We are primarily just a standard social clan, not necessarily a all-out competition clan like some of the other ones like AOD or My Little Ponies. They obviously are their top-ranked people. We are mostly a social, have-fun type of group. So, we decided that our best idea would be going with 3 Tier 8 tanks, a Tier 6, a Tier 5, a Tier 5 artillery, and then a Tier 2 scout. We're allowed to have a maximum tier of 8 for any of the tanks and a maximum tier of 5 for the artillery. So, we kind of spread it out a bit, trying to maximize the amount of tier 8s that we would have, along with enough to middle tiers to assist. But we definitely wanted a tier 5 artillery, because it certainly would make a huge dent in every tier, no matter what it was attacking. So, the choices that we used were based on sort of what we had available to us as opposed to what would work best. Our game plan was to have 2 tier 8s sit in the town and use them to eventually push forward, along with having a tier 8 and a tier 6 on the hill to act more or less as a roadblock. My KV here was the tier 5 slot, who was going to sit and guard the river as well as be a quick assist to whoever needed help the most. We did have a tier 2 scout who was supposed to circle around using the island and then going around back through the town and then just continue circling in order to scout out the enemies. He also was going to attempt to scout out the artillery, as our tier 5 artillery was going to try and hit the artillery first, followed by supporting any success that we were currently having. We were trying to push the success so that we could always go into their base first and then sweep them from behind, collapsing around them. Alright, so what tanks did we go with? We ended up going with, initially, with an IS-3 on top of the hill, because he's probably one of the largest, strongest, thickest, most dastardly tank we could come up with in a tier 8. So we stuck him on the hill to act as a gigantic roadblock to stop anyone from coming over and advancing. Additionally, we had our tier 6 be a VK3601, originally with the Kanish gun. I have no idea what he ended up going with, but the idea was he was going to be a rapid-fire, quick response tank that could go and support anywhere he needed to, and could of course help with the river or go over to the hill and assist there, continually poking around all over the hill on the mine. Now, in the village, we had a Low acting as a sniper tank, and then a Pershing acting as a flanking tank. So that way they would be having to focus on the Low or focus on the Pershing, and either one they focused on, they'd be thus pulling themselves away from the other. We actually stuck both at different points, so there was a 90 degree difference between the two of them, so they would have to be exposing side armor to one or the other to be able to target them. It worked out fairly well in the first match, but I'll get to the other matches later. So, we then had me and the KV behind this rock that you see me at, guarding both the island and the river. I could of course go and assist where needed, but I had the long 107 with gold rounds, which were able to penetrate anything in the game. So that was helping make a difference in terms of holding the side. Now, we had a M41 as our artillery piece, because that was the only one we really had available to us. He sat around in the base, moving from side to side as needed, but mostly, as I said before, he was there to help reinforce success. Our tier 2 scout was the T2 light American tank, solely because he was the quickest tank in the game. He was there to go scout around the island, try and root out their artillery, go back through the town, spot where they were heading so we could reinforce that position, or to push a weaker flank. So, this is actually our second game that we've actually played in the tournament. Our first game did not really go so well for the other team. The first time, they actually did not enter the tournament at all. I believe no one had showed up, or they were all not ready at that time. So we defaultly won the first round and had to wait 5 more minutes for it to start again. We were guessing at that point in time if they were actually going to be involved in the tournament or not, and if we just get a default win. But the second time, it actually did load into the game with only 2 of them in the game. We actually felt really bad, as apparently their entire team ditched them except the 1 low and a T2 medium. Or, yes. So it was not really fair for them. It really did feel bad that we were able to just swarm them and eliminate them within the first 2 minutes. Really was not fair, was not fun. But I guess a win is a win. And so it brought us into our second round here, where we felt a little confident, but looking at the team's stats, we knew it was going to be a very difficult game, as the other team did appear to be a very, very strong, well-grouped team with a bunch of good tanks. As you can see here, they fielded 3 Tiger 3s, an IS-3, a M41, a MS-1, and then a Leopard. So they had 2 good scouts, a scout, a filler, a bunch of tier 8, and then a tier 5. Whereas we were kind of spread out more over the field of things. In the second game, they actually changed things up a bit, and it did prove to be a little more difficult for us. And we also changed things up, which didn't work out for us at all. At this point, though, we pretty much had the game sealed. The group in the center was able to take out their targets. I held both the guys in the river to stay there until they were almost already swept at that point, in which they just were overran. At this point, they really didn't have much to do because we were overrunning them in the town as we had planned, and we stopped them on the hill when they only sent maybe 1 thing up there. So their push was really into the town and across the river. And it didn't work out, as I sat there in a very defensive position, which was only revealing the very top of my turret and the gun, and I was able to hit them with gold rounds to penetrate them and force them back. So they only left 1 tank here at the end to watch me, as they tried to reposition to counter, but it was already too late at that point in time. So I do move in here for the final shot to take him out, causing the win in the first round. Oh, nope, sorry, I took the second to last shot to take the guy out. But, so we move in with a victory here, going 1-0 so far. The tournament, though, is a single elimination, so if you lose, you are out of the tournament. But it is each individual match consists of 5 rounds, and it is not best of 5. It is first to 2 wins. So you could draw the first 3 and win the last 2. You could win the first 2. Any which way you can come up with 2 wins. The first to it is the one who wins that match. We took the first one, so we were sitting here at 1-0, and we decided to switch up our tanks to just change it up a bit, get us some different feelings here, and to also keep the other team on their toes, as we figured they had expected to see the exact same tanks. So we changed it up a bit. We went again with an IS-3, but this time we also went with an M6 Big Head Premium American tank, a Ferdinand or Elephant, my Easy 8, a KV with a long barrel 107, the M41 again, and then the T2 light tank again. This actually proved to be a very fatal flaw. We did not practice this side nearly as much as we did the other side. We had a much better advantage on the side labeled 1 as their capture point than side labeled 2. We just didn't practice it more than maybe 5-10 minutes, so we had only a rough idea of where we were supposed to go. As you can see, we really kind of were lacking on where to go, what to do. My Easy 8 did have gold rounds in it, but it was not by any means suited for this type of combat. The VK3601 was a much better choice, and probably would have been better off sticking with that. As for the other tanks, I think it really came down to the fact that we didn't practice the side enough, and we entered these tanks cold, never having really practiced them, mostly just to get different exposure, keep the other team on their toes, and just to do something different and change it up, so we didn't do the exact same thing over and over. But we should have relied on consistency, as it would have made a bigger difference. Our initial idea for defending this map was the fact that we were going to have our Elephant or Ferdinand defend kind of close to where he was in the Pershing, kind of just around on the other side. Have the IS-3 also on the side in the town, kind of being able to snipe as he needs to. My Easy-8 and the M6 Big Head were going to be on top of the hill, being able to provide assistance as needed, as we figured that his big 200mm armor and 200mm hole on the turret was going to be enough to stop them from coming up top. Plus the large gun would definitely push them back. We had the KV sitting behind a house right next to the spawn, so that he would be able to push them out of the water and or assist on the hill if needed, and if he really needed to, he could move into the town. My job was, of course, to roam around on top of the hill, helping out where I can, spotting where I can, and the scout was to move around the island as normal, and try and go around from the island to the village, so on and so forth. Artillery was on top of the hill as normal for this map. Now, my Easy-8 did not have nearly the armor as I expected it to, nor did it have the punch, even with the gold rounds, to really take on anything out there. So it was a sore disappointment when I realized, just too late, that it was not going to work out for me at all. Even the quick rate of fire, I would have really only been beneficial had I been able to get close and flank them, and try and outrun their turn speed. As you can see, the Ferdinand and the IS-3 were kind of holding the flank over there fairly well, but with losing the hill, it was already going to go downhill. No pun intended, as they were able to start crossing unimpugned, especially the Tiger II coming across. So, there could only be so much that we were able to do at this point. They started to outflank us. Our TD and the IS-3 really needed to pull back, but they had problems of their own in the village that they had to worry about. And so the KV was unable to stop the things that were advancing on him from the river, thus leading to a total collapse of our position over time. Pretty much this one comes down to the simple fact we did not practice this one nearly enough on the side, and we went with tanks that we pretty much didn't really know enough about. We went with ones that were not our standard. So overall, it was a fun experiment. It was nice to change things up, and we did try to push them off and try to give them a little bit of a confusion, not knowing where we were going to go, what we were going to do, but it did backfire on us. We did try and hold out as long as possible. We did have a few options here. With the KV going down like that, all we were left with was the Ferdinand, but he can only do so much, only one man there. So he was able to take down 2 tanks in total, if I recall correctly. So he's going to actually go and try and hold both flanks, but he's easily going to take side shots no matter what. The artillery was not really as effective because they were very good at sticking close to the walls and to places where they would normally get cover. So all that was left was him being able to shotgun a tank, but it didn't work out nearly as how we had hoped. So he was able to reposition slightly, but sadly, without having practiced shotgunning a SPG enough, and again, with us choosing tanks that we probably shouldn't have been using, it didn't end well. If we had simply tried using the same tanks we were in beforehand, we might have had the advantage, and we might have been able to do it, but again, with the slight breakdown of communication, the unfamiliarity with the side, and unfamiliarity with the tanks, we were unable to pull it out here in the second round. And there was a chance here where we could have, but a miss kind of prevented it from happening. So all that was left was for the tank to come up on top of the hill, finish it off, and that would be it for this round. And so with the advance on the hill, they will end up taking this one and go 1-1 now. So we tied it up, and we should have the ability to do one more here. Win or lose, it will determine the fate of the game. And so there, with a clever shot, we missed, they made it. Now, we return back to our position that we did practice plenty of times, and we return back to the tanks that we're very familiar with. But the other team already knew our positioning and knew our tactics, so they figured out what we were going to do and knew what to go, or knew where to go to counter us, and knew what they were going to do in order to keep us from doing the same thing that we did in the first game. So we set up like we did the last time, with me and the KV over here taking up a sniper position behind this rock and looking at the river. We had the KV, or the IS-3 along with the VK up on top of the hill again. And we had the low with the, it's not a Patton, the Pershing over behind the rock defending the town. The scout, though, ends up getting stuck right there against the MS-1, and for some reason he didn't move. He might have been stuck on something, but either which way, it ended up getting him killed, and we lost our scout way too early, thus preventing us from being able to know where they were. So, that really set us at a disadvantage, but this was only the first to a major line of breakdown of communication. I believe we got a little too anxious in this one, let the heat of the game get to us, and we kind of were trying to tell each other where to go, what to do to assist, and where to be, but it seemed as though no one was able to really understand what it was we were trying to convey. We didn't take advantage of the in-game map clicking and being able to ping on the map where we wanted them to go. We totally forgot about that, and it did lead to a total breakdown of communication, which would have potentially ended up causing us to be able to push them back or even win the game. But it really did come down to the fact that we were not able to communicate with each other, and we kind of let the game get to us instead of taking a breather and looking at the game for what it is and just doing what we practiced. So, I'm sitting here in the KV still watching that island, looking out for the scouts, which I know they're over there. But what I don't know is that I'm actually getting flanked by this Tiger II, which I thought I would be able to at least push him back, but with my gold rounds I just hit him and did nothing to him, but he got a lucky shot on me. Normally they were having trouble hitting me on behind this rock, but they didn't have the problem there. So I ended up falling into their trap here, where they would send their leopard behind a rock, their tiger would advance, and I'd be more worried about the leopard because I didn't want the leopard to get back to our arty. So the tiger was able to advance unimpugned there, whereas I wouldn't have the ability to take him because the moment I looked back at him, the tiger would, or the leopard, sorry, would then return to go get our artillery. So I was more afraid of protecting the artillery than I was worrying about the tiger. And as you saw there, it just cost me a hit to the hull, thus rendering me pretty much combat ineffective. Because the MS-1 is over there in the distance, I'm going to take him out, but it's going to be a waste of a gold round, as it really won't do much. But the Tiger II is going to come around here and start playing around this rock with me, forcing me to move, allowing his leopard to get to our artillery, and thus he's going to have the ability to get me while flanking. While the rest of our team, as you can see on the minimap there, we have the VK trying to come back and help me, but the IS-3 is looking in the wrong position. We kept trying to say where we needed everyone to go, but a lot of people were getting confused as to where it was we were trying to convey because we were not using the map pings. So my death right here is going to result on the fact that I was not taking advantage of the in-game ability to mark locations, and thus people were confused about where they were supposed to go. So at this point, our flanks are going to collapse. Our artillery's been spotted already and killed, or going to be killed. We lost our IS to getting flanked by people on top of the hill, and our Pershing here is going to do the best he can, but when he's going up against two tanks, there's not going to be much he can do. It's just going to end up with them getting flanked. They could normally be able to take it if they had assistance from the artillery, but with the two tanks pushing hard and the tanks behind them also hitting them, there was not much they could do. So we would end up losing this one, thus being out of the tournament, but our goal in all was to actually get just one win, because we knew that we were not a very competitive force, that we were just a social casual group. So for us to win the first one was huge for us. We did excellent, and I figure that we could have done a little better had we practiced the other side, worked on our communication, and tried a little harder, but it happens. So that ended the game for us, and I want to say thank you for tuning into this episode, and I will catch you guys in the next one.